In this video, we're going to install Visual Studio Community 2022 and the front end of SQL Server Analysis Services for free. Hello, I'm Philip Burton of idodata.com. SSAS has got two components. The first is the backend. So this is SQL Server. This could be SQL Server Developer, for instance, which is available at no cost. But there's also the front end, the bit that you use. And in this video, we're going to install that front end. Now, if you haven't already installed SQL Server, that's the back end, with SSAS installed as part of it, then please have a look at the link at the top of this video for how to download and install for free SQL Server Developer. In order to use SQL Server Analysis Services, Integration Services, or Reporting Services, you need a front end. And the front end that is usually used is Visual Studio. So this is Visual Studio 2022, which is released in November 2021. So the next release probably won't be for 2 or 3 years. Now, this is the first release of Visual Studio that has got some more demanding requirements. So you need Windows 11 or Windows 10 with the version 1909 or higher, or Windows Server 22, 2019 and 2016. Additionally, you need a 64-bit version of Windows. So if you've got an older machine, then I'm afraid you won't be able to install Visual Studio 2022. You can find out what you've got by going to Explorer, right and clicking on PC or this PC, and in your PC it should say somewhere whether you've got 32-bit operating system or 64-bit. If you don't have the minimum requirements, so you've got Windows 7, Windows 8, or you've got a 32-bit operating system, then you can install Visual Studio 2019. Now, additionally, you do need a bit more hardware than previous versions, but it's not too bad. Minimum of 4 GB, but they recommend up to 16 GB. I would say 8 GB is more usual as a minimum, and a 1.8 GHz or faster 64-bit processor, but not an ARM processor. However, that's the vast majority of modern computers. So what I'm going to do is go to visualstudio.microsoft.com/downloads. Now, the reason I've come to this downloads page as opposed to just going to the first page I came across is if you can't install Visual Studio 2022 and you need to install the earlier version, 2019, then in this downloads page, go to near the bottom and we've got older downloads. If you click that and scroll down again, you can see that we've got the older versions and there is 2019. So you need a free Visual Studio subscription. So if you don't have one, then you can create one. And then when I click on download and potentially have to log in, you can then go to this download page and you can download the Visual Studio Community 2019 edition. Just click download and most of the functionality will be the same as in the 2022 edition, especially things like the GUI, the graphical user interface that you use to interact with Visual Studio. So if I just go back a few times, I go back to this download page. So that's how you can download the earlier versions. So let's go back up and let's download Visual Studio 2022. Now you can see that there are 3 different versions. The professional version will cost you around $800 or $40, $45 a month. Enterprise a lot more. However, the community version is completely free. So it says a free download as opposed to just a free trial. So I'm going to click on free download and in just a few seconds we'll get notification that it is downloading. Now this is just the bootstrap. This is the minimum bit, so it's not the full version. So I'm just going to now minimize everything except for this. So we need to set up a few things to start your installation, and here it comes. Now, Visual Studio has an update every 2 years or so. So before 2022, there was 2017, then 2015, and I think it was 2012 before that. And the versions, they change a little, but with regards to SQL Server, they aren't huge changes. They're more changes for if you're using languages like, for instance, C# or VB.NET. So here we are in what you want to install. And the reason this exists is because there's so many different environments you might want to set up, so many languages you might want to be using, like ASP.NET, C#, Visual Basic, F#, and all the rest. Additionally, you can install language packs and individual components as well. You can also say where you want it installing. So there's only one workload that I want installing for the purposes of this video, and that's in other toolsets, and it's data storage and processing. Connect, develop, and test data solutions with SQL Server, among others. And you can see it's now installing these optional elements, and the total space required is 4 GB. So I'm going to now click install, and it's going to be downloading them and installing automatically. Now, there's an awful lot of packages that it's going to install. It's going to be in the hundreds, so 264, and you can see it's going to download right now 1 GB. So it's a bit of a waiting game. So what I'm going to do is continue the recording, but I'm speeding it up, and then we'll see what happens. Now, Visual Studio has had a major update every 2 years or so. So we've got Visual Studio 2022 released in 21. We've also had Visual Studio 2019, so that's the last 32-bit version, and then 2017, 2015, and I think it was 2012 before that. And the versions for what we are doing in the SQL Server world, they change a little, but there aren't huge changes, especially at the introductory to intermediate level. Right, so now it's finishing up, and you can see that the start after installation is checked. And so now if I minimize this screen, you can see that it is now preparing for the first use. And there you go. Visual Studio 2022 has now been installed. And there you go. Visual Studio 2022 has now been installed. But we haven't yet installed the SSAS extension. So let's do that now. So we click on Continue Without Code to get to the main screen. And then we can go to Extensions and Manage Extensions. So you'll see that there are some extensions which have already been installed. So for instance, we've got SQL Server Data Tools, which we installed as part of the installation of Visual Studio. So let's go back to the Visual Studio Marketplace, and I'll type in the word analysis. And we can see that we've got by Microsoft, and it's not a trial like many of the others, the Microsoft Analysis Services Projects 2022. So click on it, click on download, and you can see that it is downloading into your downloads folder. So it took around 2 to 3 minutes, and you can either click on it in your web browser, or you could probably go to downloads and click on it there. So I'm going to double click on it. So it's doing a lot of initializing. This will take a minute or two. And then it asks me, do I want to allow this app to make changes to your device? So I'll click yes, and it continues to initialize. So after a couple of minutes, we get this dialog box. You can see that it has a digital signature of Microsoft Corporation, and it has checked the version of Visual Studio I want it to install to, in this case, the Visual Studio Community 2022. So I'm going to now click install, and it says it is now waiting on the following processes to shut down. And basically what that means is that Microsoft Visual Studio is still open. So you can use Microsoft Visual Studio to actually find this extension, but you can't have it open when you install it. So let's close it down, and you'll see that that dialog box then disappears, and we now have the actual installation. So it takes about a minute and a half for it to actually start installing, but when it does, it's fairly swift. So the entire installation process took around 5 minutes, most of that just waiting. So now I close Visual Studio Community 2022. Well, it's already closed. So I'll click close on this. That ends the installation process. Now I will reopen Visual Studio 2022. And I can then go back to creating a project without code, go to File, New Project, and I can type in Analysis, and you can see that we can now create an MDX analysis, an Analysis Services multidimensional project, and also an Analysis Services tabular project. So in this video, we've installed the front end, Visual Studio 2022, and we've also installed the Analysis Services extension. Now, you won't be able to run any of these projects if you don't have SQL Server installed as the backend. So if you haven't done that, please do so now. You'll find a link above to my video on this. Now, if you would like help creating these analyses, then please let me help you. I have 2 Udemy courses on SSAS. In my multi-dimension expressions, MDX, we start off by creating our first cube, looking at data connections, data source views, and cubes. And then we have a look at how we can query the cube in Excel, SSMS, and SSRS. Then we start enhancing it. We create hierarchies and translations. Most of the rest of the course is about retrieving the data from the cube. So we're looking at measures, dimensions, hierarchies, sets, functions, and KPIs. I also have a course on the tabular version. So in this course, we'll have a look at creating a model in Visual Studio, developing it, such as quick measures, perspectives, and hierarchies, and also formatting and sorting fields. Then we have a look at how we can retrieve data from this using a variety of functions. There are links to these courses in the description, and I look forward to seeing you in those courses. So thank you very much for joining me in this video. If you like it, then please click the like button, and why not subscribe and click the bell next to it so you can be notified of any new videos. Thank you for watching this. I'm Philip Burton of idodata.com, and keep learning.